Ukraine succeeded in attacking Kherson's attack units, the most important city on the Kherson front, and eventually cut off supplies and approached the western border. However, more than 25 tanks were mobilized, and the Ukrainian military's attacks were repelled by the Russian military's defense. Although there have been many conflicts on the Kherson front, most of the model battles have been reduced and the Ukrainian army has also suffered heavy losses. As the attack continued, the Ukrainian military showed quite tiredness whether cheating was high or not. That is because in the upcoming Battle of Kherson, the Ukrainian troops are likely to be well prepared to replace the rear reserve forces and reorganize the attacks. However, many equipment was destroyed at the Battle of Mylev, many Russian artillery were completely destroyed by Ukraine's overwhelming attacks, and Ukraine succeeded in identifying the weakness of Russian troops in the region. Currently, the Russian army of the southern asset, which was blocked by the collapse, has failed to refuel properly and cannot properly use armored vehicles. It's time to give Luka the choice. Before Christmas, Ukraine announced that it would end this war, but under previous physical conditions, Russian troops aboard Harry were still undefeated. The Ukrainian army has exceeded the firepower and scale of the Russian army, and has long started construction in Kherson. Why they haven't gotten this place back, and what happens next if they drill a hole. I'm not an expert, but I've studied and rearranged this field. Please understand that there may be unexpected mistakes. Considering many news that Washington was observed in fires too, the fire situation broke out in Ukraine, the Ukrainian army overwhelmed the Russian army at the fortress and burned down. The eastern front of Milobz-Luhansk is large in scale. That's why Russian artillery that entered Ukraine from the end of the sun no longer fired to stop Ukrainian troops. 37 kilometers northeast of the dam that blocked Russian troops' attack, possibly because KO, who recently restored the temporary bridge, is adding Russian troops. Personally, at the front's Milad, the Russian military recently resorted to cruel tactics to attack the Ukrainian army by accelerating the mobilization force sent to the front through the farm, and many Russian reserve troops sacrificed such a large amount. Due to the recent collapse of the Kerber Bridge, the Russian military is practically using tanks and armored vehicles as classic artillery. Most of the Russian military's counterattacks on Ukraine rely on artillery fire, although it is unlikely that Ukrainian troops will be supplied in this area, but the Russian military cannot receive the help of fishermen. The people. But as I said, in this battle, the Ukrainian army seems to have overwhelmed the PhD Russian vests. Even if we rearrange and reactivate, it's not easy to achieve that goal in a short time. Recently, the Ukrainian Air Force is competing with the Russian Air Force without control. As it is difficult for Ukraine to carry out air bombing, Ukraine has also overcome firepower and artillery to pass Lilob to Kherson. However, military experts predict that even if we succeed in breaking through the Blood City, Russian tanks in this area will have no choice but to abandon their equipment and run away. Fortunately, the response of the Russian military, especially in her line, has reached an unreasonable level, but this year it is doubtful whether it will be able to withstand it. Now, on October 14th, your officials say most of the fuel supply to the legendary Russian army has been interrupted, as the explosion of the Chichi Bridge on October 8th paralyzed the Russian military's logistics system.